Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. This is the Value Added Producer Grant Workshop, Lunch and Learn. My name is Melissa Moeller. I was a farmer for 16 years. We mainly raised certified organic, pasture-raised eggs and sold those throughout Western Washington. During that time, I discovered the Value Added Producer Grant Program through NABC, and then ended up applying for 3 back-to-back grants for my own farm. The first was for taking retired laying hens and making soup stock, and was awarded that one. And then the second one was taking chicken poop and turning it into chicken compost and selling that. And then the third one, when I really understood how to write a really good application for this program, I wrote it for selling more eggs to more people in more places throughout Western Washington. By that point, I had discovered that what I really loved was helping other farmers access these grant programs more than the farming itself. We sold our farm to a neighboring farm. It is still in operation, and I devote myself to helping farmers be able to access the capital that they need in order to grow their businesses. So the Value Added Producer Grant Program is by far my favorite grant program for farmers, for agricultural producers. So when I say farmers, I mean farmers, ranchers, fishers, and harvesters, anyone who is involved in the day-to-day activity of producing food. So the purpose of the Value Added Producer Grant is to help agricultural producers successfully process, market, and sell value-added products. It's to help them expand markets for them specifically and to strengthen rural economies. This program has been around for many years, and it does not seem like that is going to end anytime soon. So to apply for this, you have to be a agricultural producer, which is defined as an individual or entity that produces an agricultural commodity and is involved in the participation in the day-to-day labor management and field operations. So it's not just a food processor or a food marketer. You actually have to be someone who is producing the food in order to apply for this particular grant program. Okay, so the applicants need to produce and own more than 50% of the raw commodity that will be used for the value-added product. Now, what that means is that you can buy up to 49% from your neighbors. So if you want to make applesauce, you would just need to grow 50% of the apples that are used in that applesauce, but then you can buy 50.1%, right? And you could buy less than 50% from a neighbor. You need to own the product from its raw commodity state. So in this case, you need to own it as an apple on a tree through the production of the value-added product. So through the time where it becomes applesauce and is ready for sale. If you have a value-added product that has multiple ingredients, you don't have to produce all the ingredients, just one. So my favorite example of this is pizza. You want to sell pizza, which is a value-added product, and you grow basil. The basil could be the ingredient that you're providing to the pizza to be an eligible value-added product. Okay, so product eligibility. So to the product requirements are you need to show that you've added value to the commodity. You can't just grow the apples and then sell them into the commodity market for the USDA, ton price by the ton. You need to be doing something that adds value to it. You need to show that you're going to access new customers and not just sell to all the same customer base that you have when you start. And you need to show that you're increasing the revenue that comes back to the producer, back to the farm. We get into all of this in a lot more detail in our bigger presentation at the end of September that Emily alluded to. So if you are really interested in any of this, we can definitely talk in more depth then. But I just want to give you a taste of it today. Okay, so there's 5 different methods that add value. The first is what everyone thinks about is a change in physical state. So like this example I've been using of apples to applesauce, that everybody understands that, right? You can't take the applesauce and undo it and go back to an apple. It's had a change in state. Enhanced production methods. So that would be, let's see, do I have all those other slides? Oh yeah, here they are. Okay, I'll go through them one by one. So the change in state. So here we even have apples to apple slices, milk into cheese, wool into clothing, livestock into packaged meat. Now you see that there is the wool into clothing. It doesn't have to only be food for the change in physical state category. If you're starting with any raw agricultural commodity and you're doing a change of state, that would qualify. Yeah, tomatoes into salsa, absolutely, that qualifies. Yeah. So a change of physical state, you've taken the commodity, you've turned it into something else. You can't undo that and turn it back into a tomato or an apple or wool that's not clothing. Okay, the second method, enhanced production methods. So if you are growing it in a way that it is enhanced over the regular commodity market, so it's organic, it's free range, it's biodynamic, any term that you can show will get you more money for that product in the marketplace over the standard commodity value is an enhanced production method. So that is method two. Now you only need one. In fact, you don't get any extra points for doing more than one. You're going to choose one of five methods. So you change it into something else, you grow it in a way that enhances it. There's two other methods that I did skip in here. Renewable energy and physical segregation. Those aren't used very often. Um, it's a pretty rare thing, so we're not really going to go into depth in those. But the last method that I wanted to talk about is a locally produced agricultural food product. If you are growing and selling, marketing and selling within 400 miles of where you grow it or within the state in which you live, that is adding value, as long as it's food. So that's kind of our catch-all category. If you are growing a food product and you're selling it yourself at a farmer's market or through a food hub or just on your own through a farm stand, however you're going to sell it, if you're selling it locally, you have added value to it and are eligible for this program. So you don't have to go get a processing kitchen, which was the mistake I made the first time. I thought, oh, I have to build a processing kitchen and turn these retired laying hens into soup stock for it to be eligible. My third one was selling more eggs to more people and more places, and that is adding value by doing it locally. Okay. So there's two main types of value-added producer grants. The first one is a planning grant, and a planning grant is you would be awarded money to pay a qualified third-party consultant to develop a feasibility, marketing, and our business plan related to the processing and our marketing of your value-added product. You would apply for that on your own, but you can't be the one being paid to be the consultant who produces those. You need to pay a qualified third-party professional to do that. The second type, which is by far the vast majority of applications, is a working capital grant. And this is where you are getting reimbursed for eligible project expenses that have to do with processing and or marketing your value-added product. And I'll get into a lot more detail on that in a minute here. Okay, so working capital grant variations. The first one, an emerging market proposal of $50,000 to $250,000. This is where you have an idea of something, you're not currently doing it or haven't been doing it for 2 years, but you would like to start doing this. So if you are not an agricultural producer, but you're a producer group, so a cooperative, an agricultural producer group, or a majority controlled agricultural group, this is the only category that you can apply in. So that's where you would have to. So expanding into a new market, doing something new, helping a group of farmers go pursue new markets and products. If you're a individual producer and you have an idea for this, you also can do that. But the trick in this one is you have to have a third-party generated project-specific feasibility study and a business and marketing plan that's related to that product. So for agricultural producers, I do encourage them to the next one. Let's see if we get to the next one. Okay, here we go. The market expansion requests of $50,000 to $250,000. So this is only eligible, independent producers, only eligible applicants. And what you're doing here is you are taking a product that you have been marketing and selling for at least 2 years and you are going to do more of that. You're going to expand your market for that. The benefit of this is that you already know what you're doing, right? You've been doing it for at least 2 years. You understand who your market is or could be if you had some help with some of those marketing expenses. And then you would write an application to go pursue those new customers. You do not have to have the independent feasibility study for this. You just need to have a business or marketing plan that you can write yourself, or you can work with someone else to help you put that together. And that is something that we do quite often. Okay, and then the last variation on working capital grants is a simplified request for $50,000. You don't have to have the feasibility study or business
Walker
plan.
Adam or Walker Adam.
You still need to be able to show that you are reaching new customers and bringing more money back to the farm. I really encourage producers, though, to wait until you can get the full 250,000 rather than limiting yourself to a $50,000 grant. Because once you have received money for a project, you can't come back and do that same project again. You would have to do a different product or a different geographic region or something significantly different. So most producers that I work with, we can get them to that $250,000 ask. But this is an option. If you are really just starting or want to keep something small or need a little bit of a jump start, $49,999 could go a long way toward helping with that. Okay, so here are some examples of eligible uses of working capital funds. So processing costs, everything involved in taking that apple after it's harvested. So growing and harvesting do not count. But after the product is harvested and is in the next phase, the wash pack shed, the refrigerator, the processing room, wherever it goes next, that's when your clock starts. So your labor, your utilities, all the other ingredients. When we talked about pizza as that value-added product, all the ingredients other than the basil making that pizza would be an eligible expense for an ingredient. But also paying people who are not in your family to do that processing and the utilities for the building. The building itself, this is not an infrastructure grant. It does need to be for supplies rather than equipment. Your packaging, your labels, so for mine with the eggs, the egg cartons counted because I added value to those eggs by putting them in a carton and selling them locally. The labels for the cartons, all that counts. Purchasing additional raw commodity as long as it's less than 50%, like we talked about earlier. If you are growing apples, you can buy from your neighbor up to 49.9% of the apples needed for your applesauce project can be purchased and is an eligible reimbursable expense. Advertising costs, promotion costs, your financial and accounting costs for that product all count. Website redevelopment, social media management, we're starting to see that a lot more, where people want to launch really good Instagram campaigns, having professional photographers come out, paying somebody to manage those posts for you. Those are all eligible expenses. Distribution, shipping, and delivery. So getting the product to the customers, any costs associated with that are not equipment would be eligible expenses. Okay, ineligible expenses in this program, construction. You can't build any new buildings. You can't buy equipment. You can't buy vehicles. And you can't be reimbursed for costs related to producing the product. So tending the ground, buying seeds, harvesting, none of that is eligible. Engineering and agricultural design. This is a program designed to help with marketing and expanding your markets. Okay, so there is a matching fund component to this grant. It is a one-to-one grant. So every one of their dollars that you receive, you need to provide $1 in some way. Now, we've got some federal math going on here. So so don't, nobody's got $250,000 in their bank account who's a farmer that I know of, right? So don't worry about that. We have ways to do that. So there's several different ways that you can match the funds. The first is that we always look at is the value of the raw commodity. So using that applesauce example again, what is the value of the apple? If you were to sell that apple, what's it worth, right? What would a ton of apples be if you don't take that ton and turn them into applesauce? They have a dollar value, and that would be your match in the projects. Produce a ton of apples, $3 a pound, which is I'm blanking on the number here, but you get the idea. $6,000, 6,000, Emily? Yes, about that. Anyway, so you would say you would be contributing that dollar amount to the project to match the $6,000 coming back from USDA. Your labor. So you as the applicant or anyone who is a family member who is working on the farm doing post-harvest activities. So doing the market distribution, the value of the time for that labor is part of your match. You can also contribute cash, a loan, or a line of credit. Now you're not contributing it to them, but you're showing that you have that and that you'll be paying for half of the expenses in that way. You can, if you have somebody who's willing to give you a donation, the third party cash is another method. I haven't seen, no. And then third-party in-kind contributions that come from non-federal grant sources. So if a nonprofit agency wanted to provide their services to you at a reduced cost, or your website designer said, I really believe in your product and my normal rate would be $10,000, I'm going to do it for $5,000, the other $5,000 would be part of the match. And then the $5,000 that's actually paid out would be a reimbursable expense. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so your matching funds need to be at least 50% of the project cost, and they need to be spent in advance. So if you wanted to get reimbursed for $10,000 worth of expenses related to photography and social media management, you would need to have contributed your side of the $10,000 first, whether that's the value of the commodity, your labor, cash, some of those other sources. You can't have any conflict of interest. Anybody who's even remotely a family member or an owner in your business can first. So your nephew may be a professional photographer and one of the best in the state, funds to pay them for that service. And then all of the matching funds do need to be verified when you apply and then at the time that you receive the award. Okay. Oh, application preparation, just some things to think about. If, let's say you're thinking, I think I do have a project be a really good match for this program. I always encourage people to think about something that you're currently doing rather than something you haven't done yet. It's just a whole lot simpler to write an application. You don't have to pay somebody to help you necessarily, although we are available for that and do love helping producers access this. But here's some things to think about. Make sure you understand your numbers. How much have you produced in the last 3 years? Do you have good records showing that? How much more do you think you can produce in the next 3 years? If it's apples, right? I mean, there's going to be a limitation on how many more apples you can produce in the next. Some things with vegetables, if you have the land space, you could say, yeah, I've been really successful. I'd like to sell 3 or 4 times the next few years. And I think I've established a market where people would want to buy those. So you want to really understand 3 years forward, 3 years back, your production, your sales. How much have you sold for the last 3 years? Hopefully you've got good records that show you the quantity and dollar amounts for that product. What rate of growth do you think that you can achieve in the next few years? Who are your current customers and who would buy from you if you had more to sell? So thinking through your numbers is a great way to prepare to apply for this grant. Next step is to make sure you are operating legally. Working government, you have to have your business licenses, whatever business licenses your state requires. Are you employing people legally? And no, it's common practice in the farming community to cash or barter. Unfortunately, the IRS does not recognize those as eligible activities. So you do really want to before you apply for federal funds, make sure that your ducks are in a row business-wise. Um, are you either a U.S. citizen or reside in the U.S. after legal admittance? You're going to be asked that. They are going to check that. So if that is not the case, don't apply for this grant. Do you have the authority to act on behalf of your organization? Are you a decision maker in your? This is a. She thought she was, but it was a trustee who had the authority, and so she wasn't able to get the grant money. Are you current on your IRS tax filings? And does the IRS have any judgments against you? Again, both of those would be disqualifying events for being able to receive federal funds. Do you have a current, if you recommend that you put one for yourself, having a basic business plan. This doesn't have to be 50 pages. It doesn't have to be done by a professional. It can be done by you. But it's basically you want to be able to tell your story. And a lot of you, maybe you already have a or social media already been generating a lot of the text and information about how you sell yourself, how you tell people who you are and what you do. Put those into a written business plan. What I found in applying for grants is having my written business plan. A lot of grant applications were copy paste, cut out who I am, my history, why I'm doing what I'm doing, and put that into an application. It gives you a really good first start in getting those going. It is a requirement for the applications that are over $50,000 to have at least a basic business plan. Having a marketing plan for the value-added product is going to give you the information that you need to fill out the application. So I've created a marketing plan template that pretty much addresses all of the application questions that are needed to apply for the VAPG. So that is available through NABC, and we can provide that for you if you are interested in looking at that. If this is a new product, do you have a feasibility study that is produced by a qualified third-party professional? So if it's something you haven't been marketing and selling for at least 2 years, that would be a requirement. And again, that's not something you can do on your own. It needs to be done by an outside person. And if you have any question about whether the person um, is eligible or not, they probably aren't, right? So if it's like, well, but my wife does this professionally, yes, but it needs to be a third party outside of the organization and the family. Okay, so at that point, then you're ready to start an application process. It is not open yet. This was a screenshot from earlier today, talking about the deadline from last year, but this is the website. And again, we could put this in the chat, or we can send that out afterward. But really, if you just do a search for value-added producer grant, this is the page that's going to come up. So this is the official rural development website through USDA, and this is where you would start the application. They do now have a grant portal, which has made it so much easier than it used to be when it was all on paper. From this screen, if you click on that to apply button down there at the bottom, this is what you'll see. And I know it's a lot of words, but this section guides you through all the things that you need to do in order to get ready to apply. And it's never too early to be working on this. I know I said it wasn't going to open until November, but I have people that I've been working with for a month or more on getting their applications ready. This is a great time. Once your season slows down, I know this is really busy for a lot of people. But as soon as you have some time to really start thinking about those numbers, thinking about putting together a marketing plan, signing up for SAM, the System for Award Management, is a requirement for receiving federal funds. It is a process that can take a couple of weeks. So the sooner you get started on that, the better. And here in that rural development site, they have hyperlinks for all of those. They also have this really handy VAPG self-assessment that you can go through, and it guides you through whether you're eligible, whether it's the right type of organization. If you have a product that qualifies, that can be a really helpful tool to use, and then you would need to create an account in the grant application portal as well in order to apply. Yeah, that's like a really quick, brief summary. We have a much more involved webinar that NABC will do at the end of September, that Emily will make sure you all know about. But at this point, I would love to hear from all of you. What kind of projects are you wanting to do? What kind of questions do you have about this project, this grant opportunity?
I'll read the question in the chat for you, Melissa.
That'd be great.
Um, it says, I currently have an urban farm in Seattle in Woodinville, 1/4 acre, where I grow herbs and peppers, which I process in my WSDA licensed kitchen using ingredients. I create hot sauces and seasonings I sell at Pike Place Market year round. Would bringing one of my existing products to a larger co-packer to do sorry, I'm having trouble. Hang on, let me pull this full thing out. Just seeing, it's a long question. Would bring one of my existing products to a larger co-packer to have volume to do wholesale with larger stores like PCC, Whole Foods, etc. qualify for a working capital grant?
Absolutely. That is a great grant, a great fit for this grant. Basically, what you're doing is you're saying you've been doing something for a while, hopefully at least 2 years, so that you could do the market expansion grant, and you want to sell to more people in more places. So the expense in paying the co-packer is an eligible grant expense. That is part of your processing cost. So all the expenses involved in that would qualify. So yeah, I would say if that's something you want to talk about further, I would love to chat with you.
And then it said, you said, hang on, I don't know why I'm having such a hard time with the chat today. Would you help people with grant process one-on-one?
I do, yeah, and thank you for asking that question. So I offer a free 30-minute consultation for any farmer who wants to talk to me one-on-one to explore whether this would be the right grant opportunity for you and your operation, and whether working with me would be a good fit for you. What I do is I take people through the whole process, to the point of application and then acceptance of the grant money if you're awarded that. We work one-on-one by Zoom or phone to walk you through all the steps in completing an application.
Okay, and then Tim wanted to know if he currently grows grains, various grains, and wants to turn that into livestock feed. Would that be an eligible grant expense or project?
Yeah, that is a really good question. I don't know for sure. Um, my sense is no, because it's not a food product for people. So under the locally produced category, it wouldn't work, but it is certified organic, so it is produced in an enhanced manner. So, Tim, why don't you go ahead and give Emily your email address, either privately or here, and I can get back to you with an answer on that.
And I apologize. I think I'd answered yes earlier, but I should have waited for the expert to answer. I was like, sure, that sounds right. Sorry. Sorry, Tim. Okay. And then from Bentham, it sounds like I have a smallish apple orchard and I've been doing apple cider for years, but now we're looking to expand that. If I understand this about equipment, we can't use this to help get a new cider press, but we could use it for other things like jugs and labor and marketing.
100%. Yeah. So what I really wanted on my farm was I wanted to build a better egg washing room. I wanted to build a barn. I wanted to improve the infrastructure. This grant does not pay for that. But what it does pay for, like you said, is it pays for the jugs and the labels and the labor in making that cider, all of the things, all the expenses you already have, but you would have more of them because you would be expanding. And then you would be reimbursed for those, and then you can take that money and go spend it on other things. There is also the WSDA infrastructure grant, and Emily, maybe you could put a link to that in there. That is currently open, and that is eligible. That is a grant that is paying for infrastructure, for equipment and vehicles right now. And that's also something I help people work on. So if you wanted help with that application, I could help with that too.
Yeah, I was thinking of that. And then also, so Jenny had just mentioned, if the Tim swung it to processing grain to feed his animals, which will result in more eggs, would that count?
I love the creative thinking, but the answer there would be definitely no, because the expenses involved in raising the animals and feeding the animals are an ineligible expense. But
This is one creative thought I have, which I'm full of creative thoughts, so take it with a grain of salt. But for making animal feed, a lot of the time meal is one of the best things you can use. And meal is a byproduct of making oil. So you could grow oil seeds of some kind, press those, get the grant to make the oil seeds. Your byproduct is then animal feed. Just throwing it out there. That's something I've wanted someone to do locally for a long time because we don't have
yes,
anyone making oil locally. So
yeah,
just something to think about.
yeah, I like that one. And selling that oil, right? That would be marketing the oil would be the approach there
Right, exactly. And that I would imagine that's a product people would want. I would want to buy locally made oil.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. I would love to see an application like that too.
And then, yeah, Sarah mentioned that the LFSI grant closes on 10/28. And for a lot of those capital expenses for processing, as Melissa said, that's the grant you want to look at. And we're happy to, any of us here from NABC are happy to help with that. And while I have everyone here and there are no other questions, I would love to ask everyone quickly, did this presentation help you gain a better understanding of the VAPG? Go ahead and let us know in the chat. You could rank it on 1 to 5 or answer yes or no. Just let us know.
Oh, Emily, you muted yourself.
Oh,
Go ahead.
that was it. Sorry if I muted myself abruptly.
Yeah, I would love to hear from anyone who wants to share of whether this is helpful, what more information you would like to see, other information that would be helpful to you as a producer or as somebody who works with or helps producers. Would love to get that feedback.
Hello, Melissa.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be doing this through the chat or if I can do it on mic. Is that all right?
absolutely. Go right ahead.
Yeah.
I did have one question. So I'm part of a cider and orchard in the San Juan County, and we have started selling commercially this year, and we have a great local product. We also have a substantial orchard that is still quite young. So in terms of applying for this application and proving that, so right now we're sourcing a lot of apples from around the islands, right? Um, do we need to wait until basically after all the apples have dropped, and then prove that 50% of our product from the next year came from those apples? Or is there a way to basically estimate and then prove that, like, by the way, our gross product for next year will be made from 50% plus from our apples?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And it is all projections, right? So what you would do is if you were to apply this year, you would say for our 2026 crop, we anticipate we're going to produce, you know, 3 tons of apples and we're going to buy 2.9 tons of apples and then take those almost 6 tons of apples and sell cider, right? So, and then you would do that for 26, 27, 28, and you're going to want to show growth. You're going to want to show that year over year, you're making and selling more cider. But also, it's really great if you could show, well, these apple trees were planted 3 years ago. And so by 27, we're going to be getting this much more. And by 28, we're going to be getting even more out of these trees assuming weather, right? I mean, everybody knows weather and farming happens.
Mm-hmm.
You take those projections and in your application, you say over the course of this 2 to 3 year project, this is what we project. Now, when you go to get reimbursed for expenses, you would then need to say, okay, for this harvest, we projected we were going to grow 3 tons, but we grew 2.95 tons. And then you would take those 2.95 tons and the value of those and match those against eligible expenses when you're getting reimbursed. But for the application, you're doing all projections.
Gotcha. So we don't need, but for the sake of the application, we don't need to provide like last year we harvested this exact amount of apples, right? We can say like we have 1,600 trees, they're going to produce this probably.
Yeah, so in the application, you are showing what you have produced in the past. Yeah, so you would say, let's say you did an application this year. So you would say in 2023, our trees produced this much and we bought this much. And that doesn't have to be 50%, right? In 24, so let's say you bought 75% of the apples, but produced 25 in 2023. In 2024, you're going to show hopefully that you grew more apples as the trees are maturing, right? In 2025, and that you're projecting that it by 2026 you will it will be at least 50%. And then hopefully it grows year over year after that.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. This has been very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'd love to chat with you more if you're interested.
Cheers.
And Sarah asked in the chat, is there anything different about this year's VAPG application over previous years?
So that is a really good question, Sarah. We don't have this year's out yet. The one big difference that came about last year was the grant portal. In previous years, it was done on paper, and the possibility of making mistakes or missing something was really high. So they created an online grant portal, and that is the only way to apply for that. I found the portal, once I got used to it, to be really easy and helpful to work with. They've eliminated some of the requirements. They used to require letters of support. They got rid of that. But we don't know exactly what this year's application will look like. Although the expectation is that it will look like last year's and won't change significantly from last year. And unless there's something else, Sarah, that you know about that I don't.
Nope, I think that you're the queen of VAPG and and you've got a closer ear on it. Thank you.
Of course, of course. Let's see, so Sam says SAM registration is a bear in itself. Yes, it is. It is a challenge. And again, we stand ready to help with those SAM registrations if you run into problems with that. There is an organization whose name is escaping me, that is their primary mission, is helping people get registered in that SAM system. Do you know who I'm talking about, Emily? I can't for the life of
I
me think of it right
don't.
now.
I
Yeah.
didn't know about this. I will definitely have to
Yeah.
find out because that's really would be helpful.
Yeah, there have been a few times where I've been working with someone where, we just end up with such roadblocks that can't get through, and they were really helpful. And I'm so sorry that I just can't access the name of that organization in my brain right now. So if you get into trouble, contact NABC. NABC will help you with that SAM registration as they're able to, and if not, they will help you get in touch with the people that you need to.
And I don't know if everyone saw, I just put a link to the evaluation in the chat. Please, please, please fill it out. But it helps us continue doing these workshops. It's less than 5 minutes, just really quick, helps us collect data about everyone who's here. Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, and I would reiterate that for Emily, that this is how NABC funds these sorts of activities, is through grant providers, grant money that they've received, and part of their requirement is getting evaluations so that people can see how effective and helpful these presentations are. So the more people who are willing to do that, the better off they will be as an organization.
And Raz asked how he can get in touch with you for one-on-one consultation. If you put your email, perfect. There's Melissa's email, and if you include your email in the chat too, I'll make sure to pass that info along to Melissa.
Yeah, and feel free to send me an email right there, and we'll get something scheduled for you if you're interested in that. Or like Emily said, she'll be following up with follow-up information for everyone who who registered for this presentation. So I do want to thank the funders. We said that this is done in part by various funding organizations who support the work of NABC and want to see NABC continue to provide this kind of information and services. So we want to thank all of these different organizations that have helped us put this on today.
And it looks like Sarah has her hand raised.
I thought it would be easier to do this on audio rather than try to type the question out. I'm playing devil's advocate here, as I am not a large producer. When you're saying that a commodity can be used as match, you harvest it all at one shot. Over what length of time can you apply the value of that commodity as the match?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does, and that's a great question, Sarah. So basically what you would do is the project can start October 1st of next year or later. So if you were to apply this winter, you would, and obviously some commodities are harvested at different times, right? So let's say, again, going back to that apples, how many apples do you have when the project starts in hand? If you have them in cold storage and you haven't turned them into applesauce yet, what we would do is we would take an inventory and say, this is how many pounds or tons of apples that you have and what are they worth? And so we're then going to have that be our start. And we are going to put that number into your tracking spreadsheet, assuming you got awarded the money. And that can be used over the rest of the year as your match against other expenses. So let's say you start out, it's the apples. So we've got $30,000 worth of apples in a walk-in cooler on October 1st. We now, over the course of the however long you need, have $30,000 of that match to match against your social media, your website creation, your labels, your jugs, your jars, your farmers market supplies, all those other things. They don't have to be spent at the same time, but your match has to come in advance of federal funds. You can't say, okay, I'm going to contribute my apples next year, but this year I'd really like $50,000 for a really fancy new website. Please give me my $50,000. And they're like, well, show us the $50,000 worth of apples or labor or cash first.
Right. So you're just basically, you've got a pooled match and as a value, and you're just drawing off of that.
Yes.
As you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're not giving anybody the apples, right? You're not having to have these. This is, like I said, federal math where you say, this is what I have. This is what I could sell if I wanted to sell it as an apple, but I'm not going to, but I'm going to take the value of what it would be as an apple and contribute that to the project and make applesauce. And now I'm going to make applesauce and sell that and get that money. So it's a pretty great system. Again, I do want to just say that as a farmer myself, this was one of the best things that I encountered to grow the farm. The applications are not easy to write. They are very involved. This isn't something you do in an evening. It takes a lot of effort, weeks and months potentially. I work with people to get the application refined, make sure that they answer the questions in a way that the funders want the questions to be answered. I say that I'm bilingual. I speak both farmer and federalese and can help farmers access the most capital that they can for this grant program. I want to see farmers thrive and survive.
I'll also add a lot of the VAPG readiness tasks they translate over to any access to capital, whether it's private lending. It's like more than prepares you for any private lending you might want. And also for FSA funding, as I've learned about other programs and other processes for access to capital or just lending in general, I've been kind of impressed with the VAPG really, like, it's as intense as it is, it's preparing you for getting any money from anywhere. Basically, you're going to need to do the same types of things. So even if you were to work really hard, not get awarded the VAPG, which we have a very good record for getting the VAPG award, so that's not too much of an issue, but it's still going to be very useful for you to have all those ducks in a row and those pieces in place, like the marketing plan and whatnot.
Yeah, thank you for that, Emily. I would absolutely agree with what she said there. Um, it is a highly competitive program that doesn't have a ton of money. So it is challenging to get one of these VAPG grants. And even people who have gone through the process and haven't received the money have found value in having that written business plan and written marketing plan in place, ready to go for the next opportunity, like Emily said. But please don't think that, even with NABC helping you, that it's going to be a slam dunk. These are hard. These are hard grants to get.
And the work
The
that you have to
process.
do to prepare isn't not only valuable for additional funding opportunities, but just in changing your perspective of the operations on your farm and tightening up your administration of your farm. So you will get a benefit just going through the process of preparing the application, and you'll find that it'll change how well you manage your business.
Yes, that was a more concise message than what I was trying to say. Thank you, Sarah.
I think as farmers, it's really easy to get into this is just really fun to grow, right? I just want to focus on my chickens. I adore my chickens. I love that I'm getting all these eggs, but you got to sit back and say, okay, but wait a minute, am I making money? Am I selling it for enough to justify? When I started selling the eggs, I was selling them for $2 a dozen and delivering to people all over Bellingham. I'm like, it wasn't I wasn't making any money. And then one day I realized, these people are doctors and lawyers and they don't do stuff for free for me. Why should I be doing it for them? So tracking production records and costs and income, all of those things that you have to do in order to apply for this grant just help help you focus on the business of it rather than the day to day. And it also helped me realize the things that I could pass off to other people, like my children and their friends, and then eventually full-time employees, and the things that to free me up to spend time on understanding the business part. And that, again, the VAPG process itself is so valuable for those kinds of things, just to help you to treat it as a business. Anyone want to talk about a potential project or have any other questions for us? Thank you, Emily and Sarah, for being here. Emily, do you happen to have that WSDA infrastructure grant link that you could put there too? We can let people know about that. One of the gaps with
Absolutely.
One of the gaps with this program, with the VAPG, that was Washington State recognized, was that a lot of people do need infrastructure. You need a delivery vehicle, you need cold storage, right? You need to be able to have buildings in order to grow farms. So there's this infrastructure grant that's separate from the VAPG, but is currently also going on right now. Applications are being accepted for that. The two pair really nicely together, right? If you get that the equipment you need to do cider on a bigger scale through the WSDA grant, then it sets you up really well to be able to do a VAPG market expansion and say, I've got this equipment now. I'm ready to start supplying all of Washington, all of the United States, whatever your region is, with apple cider. I think I'm thinking about apples a lot today.
Apple season.
Yes, so.
Yep, I put that link in the chat. And again, we're happy to help with that one as well. So please look into it. It's a pretty great grant as well.
Yeah. And then if you want more information on the VAPG, like Emily said, on September
24th, right?
24th,
Yep.
we have a longer discussion of the VAPG there, as well as, I'm happy to talk to you one-on-one in the meantime.
Yeah, and I'll follow up with the recording for this to everyone who registered. And then in that recording, I'll also have the flyer for the next workshop and just a little bit more details, registration link, etc. So we'll get that out to you in the next week.
Yeah, and thank you for everyone for taking the time to be here with us today. I love sharing this opportunity with people. I think people don't realize how how many producers are eligible. If you are growing and selling something in Washington State that you're not just selling into the commodity market, you are adding value and you may have an eligible project for this grant. And like Sarah said, also that equipment grant, I wish that had existed when I still had my farm. My goodness, I definitely would have applied for that one too. Any other lunch and learns coming up that you want to talk about, Emily?
No, we're the only one that's going to be that VAPG workshop, so we'll get that information out to everyone and keep everyone. We don't have it on the books yet, but I might be working to try and throw together an LFSI lunch and learn prior to that 10/28 date. It's a pretty, compared to the VAPG, it's a pretty simple application. The biggest thing you'd need to start working on, the VAPG workshop's 3 hours typically. I saw
Yeah.
that question. Sorry to interrupt myself, but I saw that. That it is pretty easy. The thing, what I would start doing now, if you want that LFSI, is start getting quotes, because that's going to be the thing for any of those bigger equipment. It's not some things, it might be as easy as just looking online to see what things cost, but typically for equipment, you're going to need install. You're going to need, it's not going to be as plug and play as you want it to, as you know, if you're a farmer who's ever put any infrastructure on your farm. So start getting quotes now for the installation, start getting quotes for the equipment, get more than one so you can make sure you have good quality. And then if you start doing that now and then you see that we have a lunch and learn, or you reach out, even if that just is the most important first step to take.
Yeah, and I've worked with several people on those this year and in previous years, and definitely reach out if that's something you're interested in getting help on for this year.
And yes, I saw Farmer LFSI works for work trucks, farmer transporting. Yep, that's all. You can get a truck, you can get a reefer truck, any of that stuff that's almost impossible to get grants for in any other program. That is what those grants are for. And it is stronger. It's not necessary, but it's stronger if you show that you're working together with other farms. So if you know anyone else that you could work with, like you're at Pike Place, I know Urban Farms is, then it would be great to maybe find another Pike Place farmer you could team up with, but it's not necessary. It's just something to make it a little more competitive if it makes sense.
And that is a highly competitive grant also, so that does go a long way toward making a compelling application. Yeah.
And thanks so much for coming. I've heard of Urban Farm a lot. My husband used to work at Pike Place, so look forward to helping you. We'll be in touch. All right, great. Well, I'm going to stop the recording because I think we've gotten there, and I'll let everybody log off and get back to their day. Thank you.
Hey, thanks.